I would like us to get started just so that we have a chance of having a little bit of lunchtime and finishing on time and respecting your time. Thank you for coming back again for another 2.5 hours of wonder, because you're going to learn awesome and important things. I didn't meet everybody last time, so we'll do introductions of our group that's here. For those of you that were in the other room, I'm Linda Tolliday. I'm currently our district's, or Madera Unified, K-6 Science Academic Coach. So I work at the district level, not at a site level. And the other person who was working with me is Amanda Wade. She stepped down. I'm right here. First grade teacher at Alpha, and our MUTA vice president. MUTA's covering our dinner again today. Yay, thank you, MUTA. And then if you were in our session, you didn't get to meet Jacob.
I'm Jacob Mortier. I'm vice principal at Desmond Middle School and used to teach at MLK, one of the other middle schools, mathematics, and taught high school for several years. So ELD and mathematics is my strong background.
And Berta.
And my name is Berta Cisneros, and I am the English Learner Coordinator for Secondary for Madera Unified. And I was also a vice principal for 3 years at Cesar Chavez Elementary here in Madera Unified. And my love is ELD, so if you have any ELD questions for me, I'm here to answer them. So welcome everyone.
And I'll hold up my secondary chops too. I have 33 years being a secondary science teacher before I came out of the classroom to do elementary science, which is wicked fun and exciting. And secondary people, never complain about your job again. So now that I'm working with elementary people, today we wanted to do some quick housekeeping work. That way. So, if you are paying yourself, you had to have filled out this time request, and I did these just so it's easier to remember what it is. If you didn't do that, do it anyway. It's okay. We'll figure it out. But if you want to get paid, this online thing has to be done. It's supposed to be done in advance, but it has to be done. In addition, we only have about 5 people who signed up for the unit. People, this is the easiest unit you're going to get, and I am telling you, as someone at the other end of my career, at some point you are going to want that unit. You're going to be sitting with 74 units on a pay scale that has a whole other column with $1,000 more at 75 units, and you're going to say, I could have got a unit for 75 bucks way back in the day. And it's pretty easy. If you're in the Google Classroom, the only thing we've asked you to do so far is one reflection on something you were already doing with your kids and read one article. We're going to ask you to do the same in response to the work that we do today. So you will find in the Google Classroom there is another article to read and answer some questions, and another reflection to do based on the work that we're going to learn about today, that hopefully you're going to do with your kids anyway. So easiest unit ever, but you need to go to that site, this site. MIC, Madera Induction Corps Academic Talk. You need to sign up. It's due June 2nd. The first set of assignments was due April 18th, but that was just for us. We don't care. I mean, I care, but turn it in late. I'd rather you got the unit. So if you didn't do it already, it's okay, right? Don't worry about it. This, like I said, it's the easiest unit ever. So, and it's for us a pass-fail kind of thing, like you did the work or you didn't do the work. So do the work. We've got some great responses. It was exciting to see what you guys had to say. Those of you that did it, it's helpful for us to see whether we're, achieving anything as we work with you guys. So please take the class if you can. Google Classroom, if you didn't sign up for that yet, you go to Google Classroom, this is the code. So you'll have to write that down someplace. Or actually, will you put it on the board right there, Bertha, so we've got it someplace else? And that's all case sensitive, so I'll give her time to do that, and then we're going to get started.
Is that a 0?
It's a O, not a 0, and a 7.
So first thing we're going to start off in is a reflection on the session from March, and hopefully what you've been doing in your classroom with your students about initiating, integrating academic talk in your room. So we're not going to take a lot of time on this. Now, just like with your students, if you just say talk, one person will usually dominate the conversation, or they won't talk at all. Right? That's one of the things we worked on last time. So another strategy we're going to work on is, and it has a special name, and I'll be real honest, I completely forgot what it was, because, I'm so good at that remembering piece, but it comes down to this. You're going to have a partner. One person is going to be sharing, and they're the only ones who get to talk, and the other person has to stay completely quiet. Okay? You can nod in approval, but don't respond to anything they're saying yet. Let them get everything out, and it's going to go for a full 2 minutes. And you think, can't share for 2 minutes, or I have way too much to share in 2 minutes, but that's going to be your time limit. I'll give you about 10 seconds until you're done, and then the other person will share on theirs. After their 2 minutes is over, then we'll give you 2 more minutes to dialogue and discuss what each person did, and then we'll have some share out at the end. Okay? So what I was thinking the tables might have been closer, so I was going to go face partners, but now we'll go shoulder partners. So can you, before we get started, find a shoulder partner, and maybe just for this activity, if we can have one right here just for this. And if you have this shorter hair between you and your partner, go ahead and raise your hand. If you have the shorter hair. All right? And I didn't do that on purpose, I promise. It was already part of the plan.
Just like the kids, they start talking long before you tell them to.
All right, attention up here real quick. Again, things like that, A-B partners are great, but sometimes building that rapport, which if you're in our session, last time we talked a lot about that, instead of just saying A partner, tell B, those are those moments where you can say if your birthday is the closest, because that already gets the kids talking about things and already building that collaboration piece. So A's and B's are great, but coming up with things, if you have older siblings, you go first, or whatever it is, that's just another way to build those conversations without, having to direct them with content all the time. So if you have shorter hair, you're going to be going first. Again, 2 minutes. And all the second person is doing is just making eye contact, nodding, but actively listening, because when you get to the dialogue piece, you're going to be reflecting with each other and actually asking questions. All right? And now I'm going to do the worst teaching practice ever and say, are there any questions? Because that's not what you're supposed to do, but more for our sake of time. All right, so again, we'll have 2 minutes, and that's going to start now. That just shows I'm not lying. About 15 seconds. Do we have share time? I want to add to that. If you don't mind sharing that.
10 seconds. Just kidding.
All right, 4 seconds. Close conversation. All right, go ahead and stop. No, real quick, and this, it's funny because I see it every time that I do this activity. I can tell the one who's listening and you're a teacher because I saw several people do it, and they're getting tense and grabbing onto the edge of their, because you want to talk so bad, but that's your time to listen and reflect. All right? Now, don't be afraid or shocked if I ask you to tell me what your partner said, so that means you were actively listening later. But now we're going to switch partners. The other person gets 2 minutes to share how they implemented academic talk or higher order questions or any of the pieces talked about or discussed in part. And go.
Some of the mistakes you've seen in the graduate one day I see that they are something or they use it in basketball. One of the things that they said reflections on how to once they write your reflection, I'll give them 5 minutes. And then some kids share it with us. They apparently have that's not so happy. They have to read their reflection. And then if I decide to stop, then the other person gets to learn their reflection. Let's say once in a while there's time where
Oh yeah, we did that and then something as simple as get everyone talking.
Take about 5 seconds to close conversation.
Say what they wrote down, and then the next person would say what they wrote down.
Alright, get your attention back up here, please.
If they didn't have it on their board, they would write it in a different color. So I can
Okay, one of the things that, again, adult learners, and I would say almost everybody in this room did this, but this is another activity with conversations with your students. You're all sitting like this, right? And one of the things to teach your students, of course, is turning and face your partner, make eye contact. Now, most of you turned and leaned in, but that's another modeling practice. Remember that even with adults, and Bert reminded me, that even practicing with your partners here, make sure you're turning and listening, not staring at your computer screen or staring across the way or anything like that, which I didn't see any of that, but that's just another practice.
And in primary, in first grade, we call that knee to knee. You just say with your partner knee to knee. And so if you're sitting like that, your knees are with a knee. So that's just a key little thing.
Okay, so we're just going to take, only since I interrupted a little bit, about a minute. And all I want you to do is now dialogue, reflect, and then we'll have some share-outs just for a couple minutes. I had a few that I heard that I've already asked to share some of their conversations, but anyone else will be okay with that as well. All right, so this time we're just going to take about a minute and a half. All right? Go. Maybe really small ones that they just drop. I was just wondering. Now 30 seconds. 30
That's what I used to do.
And we'll close it up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So normally I would randomly call in a student or something like that, but what I'd like to is either you share some insights from your partner or something of yourself, and I asked 2 people to share, but I'll have them go afterward. If there's anyone that would like to volunteer, what happened in their classroom or what your partner shared. Just like the kids, you talk and talk and talk, but won't do it when you're called upon. That's why we randomly select.
We could have made you sticks too.
Yeah, I should have. I'd love the sticks. You guys see the panic in your face just like the students. It's fantastic. Yes, go ahead, thank you.
So in my classroom, we were studying about culture, so Aztecs. So I rearranged my classroom where now they're in groups, and we watched a video, and then after the video, I had the students share with their partner, and then as a group, and they had to write what they thought about the video and the paper, and they had to write their name by the sentence that they wrote, and then we shared with the whole class.
Thank you. What's your name? I'm sorry.
Maria.
Maria. Thank you, Maria. Anyone else would like to share what their partner shared?
My partner, he went to a training recently, and he learned about doing the finger partners, and they have to write names. They trace the fingers, and they would choose. There's 5 different people that they write on them. Am I getting this right? And then they have to. He times it so like the first person on their go to your thumb partner. And then he would, they give him so much length of time with it, and when he noticed a couple minutes or so, then he goes to, okay, time to switch to the middle index finger or whatever. And so they get 5 different people all over to communicate with, and he said it was very effective. He was a little skeptical at first, but then he was surprised how as soon as you notice that after that couple minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, you could see them kind of, and that would boost them up, and then they would get right into it again. So he thought that was quite good.
Extra tools.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump over to Veronica real quick. I used to work with Veronica at MLK, but she has some insight that I think is important by some of the other conversations I heard, so I asked her to share.
So I work at the middle school level, and science has something called stand and deliver, so our kids have to actually stand up and say who they are, because that way they get used to projecting out, because we do have to do quite a bit of presentations in our classrooms now. Now that we have access to iPads. But I was one of the ones that Jacob first introduces these ideas to. So they've been floating around in my classroom now for about 3 years now. And it is a struggle at the beginning, because you're trying these new things, and as I'm walking around the room, I'm like, God, this didn't turn out the way I wanted to at the end, right? But you just keep at it. And as you get better at it, and as in my classroom, I have most of the structures up on the board, so that when we actually talk about that particular one, I just point to it and say, okay, we're doing this today. Or remember when we did this? And it just gets a lot easier even for the kids. The nice thing is that if it becomes more like not only a department, but a site-based idea, then they already get used to the idea, because they go from one classroom to another and already know what they have to do. So most of us have the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in terms of the sound in the classroom, so everyone knows when we're going about a 2, we mean we're doing group work and stuff like that. But it does take time, and as you get better at it, you'll notice that it gets so much more simpler, and now by the end of first quarter, the kids are all trained, which is just fabulous. Before it was, towards after Christmas, and then, you get better at it, and it's after, midway through second quarter, but now I think I got my kids down to almost at the end of first quarter. It's flowing pretty smoothly in the classroom.
And that continuation from classroom to classroom, I had a sense of pride that was brought up to me that, not that I, want to get credit for things or anything like that, but a story was shared, and I was going to have you share it just to show the power of this when it's implemented early and what it can do in the long run.
So I started with my freshman honors, and I handed out this handout to them, and many of them looked at it, they said, oh, we did this. I already know what I'm doing, but it was yellow. They actually remembered the color of the handout. And I said, really, you've seen this before? And they said, oh yeah, we were at, I don't know if it was our 2 theater schools or Desmond and MLK. And they said, yeah, there was this, it was a male teacher, and he had us doing this, and so they were very familiar with this structure already, and it was wonderful. See, we have used in the past different sentence frames, but when they saw this, they picked right up on it. So after we did a passage from To Kill a Mockingbird, we did a little analysis, and they talked with their partners, and then I called them to share out. They were very comfortable doing it, and so I just felt like that was a win-win situation, and I was very happy about that.
And I know that's excitement for Linda and I, who first started presenting this 3 years ago to all 3 middle schools, and that it's being carried into the high school. The kids have familiarity with it, and it's that much easier for them moving forward and from classroom to classroom, so that you don't have to reteach the academic talk. You just need to teach the structure of your own classroom,
Wonderful.
which is powerful. All right, thank you everyone for sharing. You can high five your partner real quick and thank them for the conversation.
And not that we were the first ones to introduce sentence frames. That's been happening, particularly in elementary, for a really long time. But this particular set of them that are bright yellow, these are the sentence frames left over from our introduction to, literally left over from when we did this as a middle school.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, we found, so I don't know if you heard Jacob, if you were in his presentation last time, or me if you were in mine, but we have a thing about we went to a lot of presentations where they kept showing us the May classroom. And we'll show you one today that's a May classroom. It's fabulous. But you go back and try and replicate that in your classroom, and your kids sort of suck at it. And so do you as a teacher. And nobody likes to feel like a failure. It doesn't work in your room because you don't have all the structures in place that the teacher had before they allowed someone to film them and put them on YouTube or Teacher Channel. So we're trying to give you some September classroom ways to get started in your room. Because you have to start someplace. They don't come to you like automatically knowing how to have an academic conversation. Okay. Didn't lose it. I put this thing down and lose it all the time. So hit it up. So, now you got it talking. Yay! Right? But this quote we used last time, although talk is a key ingredient in every lesson, it's not the point. It's a means to an end. We're trying to have them use highly academic oral discourse. We're teaching them skills and concept understanding. That's the point of the class, not just talking. Unless maybe you have speech. But even then, there's a point to the speech that they're doing. So how do we get them past, once we get them talking to each other, we've got sentence frames, they're comfortable, they're ready, they're doing the 4 L's, they're leaning in and listening and looking and all that wonderful stuff. How do we get them to the next step? So remember back, we showed you this slide last time, Jacob and I started here. We were so excited about this arguing from evidence. And then we realized that our kids couldn't do this, because like they could argue really super well, but evidence was never part of it, right? It was just personality argumentation. So it was opinion, not evidence-based arguments. So we got back to academic talk, but once you get them talking, you can start moving in this direction again. And that's the goal. The practices are about arguing from evidence, not just talking. So how do we get them there? What's it look like? We'll show you. This is my favorite argument from evidence. Very quick.
I have evidence that proves my dad's a space alien. He speaks a weird language. He drinks green stuff. He says he's from Albuquerque. I'm not buying it. I mean, just look at him. And one more thing. He has a spaceship. The evidence doesn't lie. My dad's an alien.
The highly advanced Audi A6, named to car and driver's 10 best.
All right, see if I can. Okay, so she has a claim. What's her claim?
Dad's an alien.
Dad's an alien, right? Does she have evidence for her claim?
Yes.
She does. She's missing a piece. And we'll talk a little bit about each of these pieces so you have some information about what these are. And you know what? Maybe we will. We're going to give you a tool that we'll use later, but if you want to write some notes on this, it might not be a bad idea. If you're interested, some of you guys want to do that. Those 2 tables. So, what's a claim? A claim is a little bit different than your opinion. it is to start with. Okay, it's not supposed to be your opinion, and in claim evidence reasoning and argument based on evidence, we don't start with a claim. We start with an experience of some kind, a reading, a lab, an activity, a phenomenon for the science people that we're doing phenomenon-based teaching with NGSS. We start with something, and we use what we observe, what we notice, what we read in our close reading, right? From all of that, we make the claim. We actually start with evidence. From the evidence, we build a claim. And that's what changes it a little bit from being an opinion, right? It needs to be done after reading, viewing something, conducting an experiment, being somehow involved in whatever the work is that they're going to be doing. It's argumentative, meaning there's multiple claims that could be made. It's no fun at all if there's one answer. 2 + 2 is 4. That's not a claim. I mean, it could be a claim, but who cares, right? There's no other option there. And it needs to answer an essential question. So you need to have your essential question that you're going with your kids before you're asking them to make a claim about something. Okay. Evidence. Evidence is a piece that provides support for a claim. Data, observations, information, experiences, all of those count. In language arts, you are often talking about what the author may be claiming, but you're basing it on what's in the text. Right? It's text evidence for what you're doing, which is different than what we used to have kids do. We used to have kids reflect on narrative with their opinion. It's not the same thing as asking them to go through text and support a claim. It needs to be appropriate and sufficient, and we'll talk a little bit more about appropriate and sufficient later. We're going to come back and do the girl with the alien again and talk about how that works as appropriate or sufficient. You guys will have a link to this presentation, so you don't have to write everything down. You can if you want, but you don't have to. Mostly because time is still time. All right. The piece that makes claim evidence reasoning compelling is this piece. And you will find, how many are primary teachers in here? You're probably not going to get here. Okay? Because they're not ready for it at primary, and that's okay. Right? It's a more sophisticated skill. But the reasoning connects your evidence for the claim. Someone explained it to me once as the claim is, what do you think is so? The evidence is, why do you think it's so? And the reasoning is, how come you trust your evidence? What makes you believe this evidence is an accurate support for your claim? It's based quite often on, in science, it's based on scientific principles. Right? Or the rule of law. Legal arguments have a whole ton of reasoning that connects the evidence to the claim for the crime. This guy did this crime. Here's the evidence. The lawyer puts the reasoning piece together. Right? So why do you think this evidence is support for the person doing the crime? Or not doing the crime if you're the defense attorney. Right? It explains why your claim, remember the claims are argumentative, which means there's more than one. It explains why your claim is superior to other claims. Your reasoning should explain that piece. It's a much more sophisticated, it also includes limitations, so what doesn't my evidence cover? My evidence doesn't go far enough in this area, I still need to know these things. That's part of your reasoning as well. So I want to go back and take a look at the little girl and see if we can do claim evidence reasoning based on that little short Audi commercial. Right? So on your paper, you're going to write down her claim, her evidence, her reasoning. You guys want a copy? You get extras. I know you may not have room. You can do it on the back.
We'll provide it. It'll be in Google Classroom. One of the items on this also, which Linda already alluded to, is on the green sheet that you have, is that the claim and the evidence, the reasoning, it's supposed to be
You know what?
links.
I'm going to apologize. I didn't want you doing this yet. I just looked
Yeah.
at my next slides, but I don't have a handout of them in front of me.
Okay.
Let's look at some examples in classrooms, and then we'll go through and try it.
Okay.
Okay? So I'll give you a chance to try it, and then Jacob, because Jacob needs to do the trying part of it anyway. This is his thing. But let's look at a couple of classroom examples. So, primary students are probably not ready for reasoning. Okay? Neither may your students be ready for reasoning if it's the first time they've tried a claim evidence reason. You may just start with claim and evidence. That's fine. seniors in high school. If that's where they are, it's where they are. If your kids are not used to supporting a claim with evidence, they may need to start just right there. Beginning of the year, they may need to start just right there. Okay, let's look at what goes on. And this is an elementary, kindergarten or first grade math class. Full screen.
Alright, so I want you to take a look at it and put it in your brain. What do you see? What do you notice?
Let's hear some of the things that you were noticing really quickly, okay?
I noticed they have pointy sides.
The idea is for the students to be looking at a group of objects and being able to decide, well, which one doesn't belong, and being able to give a reason why or why not.
Mathematicians, are you ready? Alright, so which one doesn't belong is an activity where the kids look at 4 different shapes. And in those shapes, they're looking for similarities, differences in order to formulate an argument and justify that argument. The students had to reason through the shapes and think about what they noticed first. Leah, what are you noticing?
I noticed that all pointy in different shapes.
All pointy in different shapes. Great.
I noticed that that one looks like a heart and that one looks almost like a heart.
Wow. All right. Thank you for all of your great noticings.
The apple's green.
Which one? Oh, the apple is green. Yes. Tamora?
There is bananas.
Yes.
Now I have another question for you. And this one I'm going to want you to share with the person next to you. So I want you to turn and talk and share with the person next to you. Which one of these belong together? Okay, lots of great ideas. Eva.
I think all of them belong together because they're all the same color.
Wait a second. Do you remember what to do? Do you remember what you have to do? You gotta come teach us.
All of these belong together because they're all the same colors.
So they all belong together because they're the same colors. Thank you. I also want to compliment Eva for coming up in front of the class like a teacher. She turned her body, she was facing towards us, did a really nice job of that. Thank you.
I think these two belong because they're almost the same.
Why are they almost the same? You said almost.
Because this one is a heart and then this one is spikes. Has pointy spots.
Uh-huh.
I think this one, and this one because they have curvy sides. The apple goes with, I think it's salad because they're both green.
Oh. Can someone repeat what Tomas said? Alice, what did he say?
He said that apple and that vegetable is like lettuce because it's both green.
That's a good idea. If you agree with that, let's give him a me too and I agree. Good thinking. And also, he put it all together. He said that the apple, we're going to call this lettuce, and the lettuce belong together because they're both green. He said because. He gave a why.
It offers students this great opportunity to really practice making arguments, saying their idea and supporting that idea. And it also sends larger messages about what it means to talk in math class in terms of listening to each other's ideas, supporting your claims, and it's not just about arriving at one answer and calling it done, that we can keep generating ideas and keep looking for other properties of the 4 objects.
Now I have another question. So we talked about what we notice, which is just what we see. Your next job, you're going to talk to your partner about it, is to decide which 3 would you put together and which one would you say it doesn't belong, it doesn't go with the group.
The beauty of it is that it's open-ended. There are no wrong answers, but they need to be able to say why they think a certain object doesn't belong. In this case, we had 3 fruits and a vegetable, but there was a color variant, there was a more than one variant, so there were different ways to look at why one wouldn't belong.
I think the grapes doesn't belong because it's all purple. A lettuce don't belong and 3 fruit belong.
Oh, that is such a good idea. The lettuce doesn't belong and the 3 fruits they belong?
I think those two don't belong because they're different shapes, and those hearts are like that pointy one is look like a heart, and that beautiful one is like a heart.
Okay. Yeah, you're noticing a lot. Thank you.
These two do not go together.
Okay.
This one don't have a circle, and this one has a circle.
Why does this one not belong?
Because it don't have pointy sides, and it don't changes. And it's got circles there, but these ones don't have it.
Okay, thank you. It creates aha moments where a student will share an idea and you'll hear it ripple across the room on the carpet with kids going, oh, and suddenly, that idea begins to take off. It allows kids to be able to hear and then also build upon their ideas. So it sounds like we've had Brittany and Yusra come up and talk about those three.
I think that these three go together because they're one shape, and this is two shapes together. Because it's square and circles.
Okay. Can you tell us that again, please?
I think these three belong because these are one shape, but this is two shapes.
Okay, so you think it's these three? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to make sense of things, articulating our thinking, backing up our claims, engaging in other people's ideas, those are how people use math in the real world. And so we need to support young learners to engage with mathematics in that way from the very beginning. And 5 and 6-year-olds are absolutely capable of doing so with the right activity structures and the right supports.
You've seen people notice that these three all have curves. We noticed that Cristiano talked about this one having what? Two shapes. These ones not. All right, excellent job, mathematicians.
So I have to say which one doesn't belong is a really cool activity. You can use it in all kinds of, not just math, right? You can use it for all kinds of activities. Were they making claims? Did they have evidence to support their claims? Right? I love the kid at the end. This one has two shapes. These three are not two shapes. They're only one shape. They have their own way of interpreting, but they're using evidence to explain. Now, they're not using reasoning. They're not talking about general principles. They're not doing that kind of claim evidence reasoning. But they're making claims, and they're looking at evidence. Okay? So a starter version, if you will. Oh, I remember how to do this. Good. All right, so we're going to move on now and show you what happens upper elementary, middle school level when you start adding some reasoning. A little more sophisticated, a little more challenging. And this, I know these kids don't look like middle school, but I don't know how to embed teacher channel videos, so I have to link them and put a picture in. So I have to learn. Jacob knows how to do this, so I have to figure it out. This one's a little shorter.
When we make claims, what do we need to follow those claims with?
With evidence from the picture or text and reasoning.
CER, claim, evidence, reasoning. This is making a claim, finding the evidence, giving the reasoning. If they have that understanding, then they're able to construct very well substantiated arguments.
Which one of these do you think is most scientific? So your claim is your answer to this question.
I think the most scientific painting is the first row, third column, because you could easily tell what the type of animal is.
In a CER format of discussion, students make a claim, their opinion or observation, then they point out the exact details, something that's directly in the text, in the picture, or in the book, that are evidence for their claim.
I also think that image is the most scientific. That's the one that has like the most insects or other more scientific properties.
Typically, they were able to make a claim, give some evidence, but the reasoning is where a lot of them struggle. The reasoning is how logically does this evidence actually support my claim? It's taken a lot of work to push them to say, okay, how do these details specifically support your claim? They're really working on that reasoning component. So remember, your evidence has to come directly from the artwork. But wait a minute, because you need to think about your reasoning. That's going to take a minute to ponder. Why does this evidence support your claim? Why should somebody agree with you? And it does take a lot of modeling and a lot of conversation, hearing other students. They are becoming much more cognizant, but it's taken a lot of practice.
I think it is scientific because maybe it was a piece of paper from a journal and it was ripped out. I could say that because it has writing on it.
Making a claim, giving evidence, and then providing reasoning. Getting all those three together, the trifecta of argument, has really been a challenge for them, but they are becoming much more competent at taking their positions and making their case for their opinions.
So first of all, were those September classrooms that we just saw in either of those classrooms? You guys that do primary, was that beginning of the school year? No way, right? There was a lot of work done to get those kids to have those turn and talk structures in place. That was impressive. Turn and talk to your partner, they were right there doing that. This classroom too looked like they've been working quite a while on all those activities. So it doesn't look like this when you start, just a reminder.
The first one had a December calendar.
Did it have a December? Well, that's impressive then. To get those first graders or kindergartners there in December. Wow.
That was very good claim and evidence.
So I am gonna, whoops, this. I'm gonna come back to this. I wanna take a minute. Come on. Okay, claims are the easy part. Because kids will make claims that don't have evidence, right? That's the piece of argument we didn't want them to do. That's why we wanted to come back and teach academic talk first. They'll just claim any old thing. It'll be an opinion. So we want to make claims about what you observe, but it's not the most challenging piece. Finding the evidence and supporting the claim, this they can do and get pretty good at. Tying it together with reasoning is much more challenging. All right, so I want to take a minute. We're going to take a look at the little girl again. And this time you guys are going to look for claim evidence and reasoning in her argument. Okay? And we'll end up looking at the last video, but too many videos in a row, we don't want to do that. So this is My Dad's an Alien. Okay? And Jacob, why don't you talk about the tool itself and how it's structured?
This is something I found that was similar to the way I used to teach but didn't have this before. And it's all about the claim and the evidence are linked by the reasoning. And as I was looking this up, I have had the immense pleasure to sit and present on a bunch of expulsions lately, which is so exciting. You know, I just love that part of my job. But after my first two, I actually had the person at the district office tell me, your reasoning didn't really support as much as you needed to. We still won the case, which is horrible to say we won. But as I've been practicing, it's learning more that our claim is the student needs to be expelled. This is the evidence of what they did, and now how do we reason why that actually fits the ed code? Why is that fit that student doesn't belong at our site anymore and needs an alternative placement? That's where this actually came in as I was preparing for expulsions and realizing that we were doing this presentation as well, and I came across this that somebody else created, but just realizing that our claim and evidence has to be linked by the reasoning. So these are supposed to be chain links. But, you know, my wonderful artistry there. But I did steal this from somebody else, so if you look online, you could find this as a little bit cleaner version and some video that goes with it. But that's the whole point. How do we link the claim and the evidence together with reasoning to support everything and leave no holes in our argument?
You will find in Google Classroom, your Google Classroom, it's not there yet, but it'll be there tonight or tomorrow morning. We have a lot of templates for you to take a look at to use with your class too. Simpler ones and more sophisticated ones. So let's look back. See if I can.
I have evidence that proves that proves my dad's a space alien.
It's really quick, so I want you to have it. Okay, we're looking for her claim, her evidence, her reasoning. And I know it's super quick. We may play it twice.
I have evidence that proves my dad's a space alien. He speaks a weird language. He drinks green stuff. He says he's from Albuquerque. I'm not buying it. I mean, just look at him. And one more thing, he has a spaceship. The evidence doesn't lie. My dad's an alien.
The highly advanced Audi A6, named to car and driver's 10 best.
This presentation is sponsored by Audi. Okay, so what's her claim again? My dad's an alien. What's her evidence?
I have evidence that proves my dad's...
She's gonna give it to us again. Speaks a different language. Drinks green stuff. Okay, has a spaceship. She isn't buying that he's from Albuquerque. If that's something he says, he's from Albuquerque. Anything else?
The way he looks.
The way he looks, right? Just look at him. Okay, what's her reasoning? What's connecting her evidence to her claim?
She's observed this.
She has observed this. Does she have any reasoning that connects her evidence to her claim, though? No. Right? Are there alternative explanations for all of the things she is using as evidence of being an alien? Yep, there sure are. And because she isn't using reasoning, she isn't actually supporting her claim, other than for the effect of the commercial, and it's cute and clever, and kids think it's funny. But there are lots of green stuff. A lot of people drink green stuff. Don't have to be an alien to drink green stuff. It just means there's green color. My brother used to want all the milk in the house, and so he would open the gallon containers of milk and put green or blue food color in them, because then my sister wouldn't drink them. It grossed her out to drink green or blue milk, so we got all the milk, right? But it didn't have anything to do with being an alien. The way he looked, well, he was wearing a bicycle helmet, right? And probably his bike shoes, and he did look kind of weird. And it isn't a spaceship, he drives a car, right? So without the reasoning piece, you can have evidence-based claims that really fall apart completely, right? And that, I would say, I keep thinking of trials, because in a trial, if you have no reasoning that links your evidence to your claim of guilt or innocence, whatever the claim is, you're not going to get anywhere with your case. You've got to connect the evidence to the crime. It's not just enough to say there was a shooting and here is a bullet. Well, how does that connect your client to this crime? So that's a piece that comes a little more sophisticated in kids' reasoning, but it's a piece that needs to be there if they're going to get very far with it. And if you don't have it, again, you can make all kinds of outlandish claims based on evidence. She had evidence. But without the reasoning piece, it doesn't really link your evidence to your claim. All right, so I want to go back now, if I can figure out how to do this.
He's a space alien.
Go away. Okay. I'm going to show you now what it looks like when it gets all put together. This is definitely not, see if it's not September, whatever it is. And this is an international school, so you're going to see some English learners in here, but it's an international school of pretty high-end kids, I'll tell you that already. But when you get claim evidence reasoning and academic talk really working in your classroom, right, you can make some magical things happen. So even though it's a May classroom kind of, environment, and I hesitate to show May classrooms, I like showing when you work with claim evidence reasoning, where can you get your kids by the time they're in high school?
My name is TJ Hannafy. I teach a class of 9th and 10th graders at the International School in Bellevue, Washington. So over the next 2 days, my students are going to read a very important text, Letter from Birmingham Jail by Martin Luther King Jr. They're going to work collaboratively in groups to analyze the text and explore its central idea. They'll present their findings to their class. They'll engage in a class-wide Socratic seminar discussion. And then they'll do some argumentative writing where they consider the ideas that King wrote about and bring in their own views as well. When I start the day, the first thing I do is present a question to the students. Okay, welcome to class. Our question for today is, how can a writer craft her or his language to develop a main idea and reach an audience? Let's have a quick refresher of some of the context of the reading. We talked about this a little bit last time. What was going on in 1963 that caused Dr. King to be sitting in that jail cell writing this letter?
Jim Crow laws.
Okay, so what were Jim Crow laws?
They were the laws to do with segregation between blacks and whites.
Before students arrived, they should have read Dr. King's letter from Birmingham jail and used a strategy that we have called metacognitive markers, or just thinking notes. So your homework was to read through and use the thinking notes. So we didn't just want highlighted text, we wanted some of those particular thinking notes for your reactions to it. So let's start with the last one there, just something that was confusing. Did anybody put down a double question mark because it raised a question you wanted clarified today, something that was confusing to you?
Well, I was just wondering if that was also, like, if you don't know, like, what certain words mean.
Sure, absolutely.
So, it's on the third page in the third paragraph, and I don't really know how to say it. It's like Z-E-I-T.
Zeitgeist, right? Anybody here familiar with the term zeitgeist? What they do is they mark on the text significant areas and also their reaction. So what is something I had a positive reaction to? What raised a question for me?
So on the first page on the very last paragraph, it says, "It is rather strange and paradoxical to find us consciously breaking laws." So, was that basically like, do people naturally break laws, or?
I really enjoy working with 9th and 10th graders because they engage in the ideas and not just the task. I really expect them to spend a lot of time considering some of these challenging ideas about when is it a just act to break a law. I want you to write down, what do you think King's main idea is? What's the central idea he's trying to express in Letter from Birmingham Jail? Next, I have students get into small groups, and I have pre-selected these groups with tasks that are differentiated for their skill level in analysis of informative texts. I want students to be able to find those elements of the text, those specific moments that help build towards that big idea.
I feel like this whole paragraph is just like really like bluntly challenging them.
Through the letter, he's trying to tell them that he's not going to stop until equal rights are realized. I think what he's really like also trying to say in the letter is like why he's doing all of it. So that would be logos, right?
The reason why I have the groups differentiated is to center on their strengths. Some students are really ready to jump into some rhetorical analysis of an informational text and look for elements like ethos, pathos, and logos. Are there any particular ethos, pathos, or logos that are a little more difficult than the others?
Yeah, ethos.
Ethos is when King demonstrates that he's someone we should listen to. So if you show you have expertise, that's ethos, that's creating an ethos effect on the reader. Some of the students who had struggled so far, I gave a writing focus like identify tone and identify imagery that has a strong crossover between a literary text where they're more in their comfort zone. So you're looking for specific word choices and things like that?
Yeah, and like big tone shifts.
Okay, are you finding those?
Kind of. We found one or two so far.
Okay, good. Right. He's not going to change tone every 3 sentences or anything. So if you find a couple over the course of the letter, then I think you should probably do that.
My question is it it's not actually his words, he's quoting someone else. So does it still count as him employing imagery?
Sure, he's just employing somebody else's imagery. So, for the next part, you're going to make a brief presentation. You're just going to make a 1-slide PowerPoint. That's going to be all, just one particular slide, and this is all the content that's going to be on there. First, what did you agree on? What do you think King's main idea is? And then second, just go ahead and let us know, because we all had different tasks, what was your task for your group? And then we want you to pick 2 quotes and note it and tell us which paragraph it's from. Those quotes, how did they contribute to the main idea or purpose? After they'd gone through the reading exercise, they would create a 1-slide PowerPoint where they would include specific quotes from the text, their overall meaning, and have to say explicitly what is the connection between these quotes I've chosen and the central meaning of the text.
Okay, so our task was tone analysis. We were looking through for like words that indicated tone and phrases too, and then tone shifts as well.
I'm going to stop for a second here. He just gave what their claim, evidence, and reasoning needed to be. But he didn't call it that. So I want to see if we can pick out what he did. What was their claim here about? What's the main idea? What's the main point? That's their claim. What was Dr. King's main idea? What's the evidence they were collecting? Quotes from the book. And then what was the reasoning? He particularly asked about the reasoning there. When he asked them to say, how did those quotes contribute to, right? He's asking for them to put the reasoning piece in. So he's not calling it claim, evidence, reasoning, but that's what they're doing there. It's that level of work, right? And now they're doing presentations out of it, so they've gone a step further.
And our main idea was that there is no excuse for injustice. Ignoring it, in fact, only promotes it. We thought that King was urging the clergymen to take action because they were influential people in their respective communities.
The reason to have this step where students are presenting their findings is it's a moment where I'm able to assess their understanding in real time. This gives them the ability to show their thinking, share the range of ideas and findings that the class came up with, and also to have a little bit of pride in the work that they've done.
So the main idea that we came up with as a group was Martin Luther King wrote this letter to address the published statement by the clergymen to help them understand his perspective on equality and justice for all.
But the quote that we got for the logos was, so the question is not whether we will be extremists for hate, but extremists for love. Will we be extremists for the preservation for injustice, or will we be extremists for the cause of justice?
And also it's an opportunity for the other class members to show some high quality feedback and provide some constructive criticism for their peers.
So there are two kinds of feedback I'd like to see. Either kind is great. One, positive feedback is great, but specific positive feedback or suggestions for improvement. Not just blanket criticism, but if you can think of something, I know a way that I think that this could be.
Okay, and I'm going to stop this because we could go on for 5 more minutes, but you can look it up and watch it yourself. The other thing that this teacher does is, did you notice what he said he was doing with the assignments themselves? Did everybody do the same thing? No, he differentiated the assignments based on the strengths of the students, right, where they were at. He had some kids that were struggling with looking at informational text, and so he had them do tasks that were related to, I lost the word, story kind of text. There it is, right? So kids that were more familiar with doing that work got to do an assignment related to that work that were struggling to help them start making the connection with informational text. For those of you doing the language arts, as we do more and more informational text, it is the thing our kids struggle with, right? Stories are easier for them to deal with than reading informational text. So he provided lots of ways to structure his classroom so that his kids could be successful at working with different areas of doing this job. But I think you can see one of the reasons, again, we wanted to show you is we like the movement from what kids are doing in kindergarten to what pretty sophisticated students are able to do with the same sort of idea in here. Okay, so you guys, the task that you have, one of the tasks that you have, and we'll give you time at the end of the presentation to work on it, is to actually do some, put together a claim, evidence, reasoning assignment for your students. And what you're going to do will depend on some things. Okay, you might want sentence frames. Your kids may need help making a claim. When I work in science with elementary school kids, we have a science notebook, and the claim has a sentence frame so that they know how to phrase a claim to make it make sense. They may not need that by high school. I don't know. Depends on where your class is. And there's sentence frames out there. You can find sentence frames for anything, by the way. You can just look them up online. You can find a ton of stuff. But here's one for critiquing others' reasoning, and I wanted to show you. So if your kids get this is for higher end, right? If we've got claim, evidence, reasoning, and our kids are getting it, and they're connecting their evidence with their reasoning, the next step is, why isn't it the other claim? Why is my claim right? Right? Why do I have the right answer? We chose not claim 2, and again, evidence and reasoning. So if you get kids that are really pushing you on this because they've got it down, challenge them to do a rebuttal piece 2. You end up with kind of a continuum. So here's the start. Claim and evidence. Claim and a piece of evidence. That's okay. Little girl and her dad's a space alien, even if it's wrong. right? If you're trying to get the idea across, finding evidence to support your claim. The next one, multiple pieces of evidence to support your claim. Then you can start adding in reasoning. And then when your kids get really sophisticated, add rebuttal. Don't start expecting that they're going to be able to do claim evidence, reasoning, rebuttal. Because, right, that will not happen probably. Unless you have kids that have done this work before. So if you need to start here with your 10th graders, start here with your 10th graders. It's okay, start, right? So to find an assignment to make that happen, right, and we'll put this slide back up at the end. We're going to give you, we hope, about a half an hour to work on this idea, and we'll probably shuffle you around then so you can be with folks that are more your grade level or content area, right? Think of a topic you're going to cover sometime between now and the end of the school year. Find something for your students to read or watch or do connected to that topic so they can collect evidence, right? Maybe sentence frames. Let's not forget our academic talk ideas. Then you need to identify the evidence that supports various claims so you can help kids with it, right? Don't try to wing it. I'm telling you from experience on this one. Because they made claims and they had evidence and then I had to go back and search through, and then you don't look like you know what you're doing, and we don't like feeling that way in front of class. So it's helpful to consider what the claims are going to be from this text and what the evidence is to support those claims to start with, and then what the reasoning piece is if you're going that far. So depending on what you're doing, you want to frame out for yourself what this looks like. And if you do that ahead of time, you've created your own sort of rubric about what you're expecting out of your kids, which is handy to have. So that's the piece to look at doing first, and then you're going to give the stuff to your kids and let them give it a shot. Again, we'll give you some sentence frames and things to work with this, but we'll try working on this at the end of the period, because last time you guys said there wasn't enough time to work on your assignment. We want to try and give you a little more time. Which brings us to, So, the plan for dinner, The dinner's going to be in the other room, right? In room 23. And most of you signed up for sandwiches. You want to find your name and your number, and it's alphabetical by first name, because I didn't write you in by last name. The numbers are on the sandwiches. I had a special order. I only have one this time. It should be labeled. And then is the person who asked me for a special order last time, because I did that for that person again. I think I have another one like that. So if you did not sign up for a sandwich, right, I signed you up for the same sandwich you got last time. So in case you're here and you didn't sign up, I just found last time's list. So everybody should have food over there. There are a couple of those papers over there with numbers. The drinks are in the refrigerator. While you are there,
we're going to be shifting gears just a little bit. So the second piece to our presentation is ELD strategies, and I'm going to be talking about the 5 ELD principles that Madera Unified has put in place, and it's things that you're already doing, but we're just going to bring them back to light. But before that, I'm going to show you a video about ELD then and now. Who knows when ELD began? Great. So, great. So you're going to learn the history of ELD then to what it is now, and Lori Olson does a really good job at explaining that. So I'm excited. So come on over.
Are we doing that over there?
Yes, we're doing that over there.
so you can leave stuff here.
That's just take it easy and then
Yeah.
get your back.
You won't need
You
to
won't
be there.
need
Just
anything.
kind of
Just
in the
sit back.
background during dinner. So go.
We are about 5 to 7 minutes behind, so I'm going to go ahead and get started because we do want to give you time at the end to work on your lesson. One of the things that has been in place in Madera Unified are the English learner principles, and there are 5 of those principles. And so we have, beginning here at the top, we have the learning objective with a language focus, which a lot of the time we have that learning objective, but we're missing that language focus. This, we've been talking about it, that academic talk and how to get students to talk more and more teacher facilitated. So the goal is to have students talking 70% of the time, where the teacher is about 30% of the time. Our next one is the use of complete sentences. And then we have our error correction, and when we're thinking about error correction, we're talking in terms of language. How do you listen for those language errors that the students are saying as they speak, and how do we correct them in a safe way? And then how do you get them to push themselves to the next level? So here are the 5 EL principles. Before you leave today, you will be getting a poster, and this is a reminder. It's more for the teacher, but so that you are reminded to practice these. Okay, so let's talk about learning objective with a language focus. So typically we all have a content objective. It would probably look something like this. This is a math one. Students will solve a multi-step equation for X. Okay, so how do you bring in that language focus? And you can do that by bringing in a listening, speaking, reading, or writing piece. And it'll sound like this. Explain to their shoulder partner the steps they took to obtain that answer. So that would be speaking and listening. So just taking that next step. How do you get them to talk based on your objective for the day? And we've already given a lot of those structures to you with our academic talk. So the 70-30 student teacher talk, I'm going to talk about grouping strategies to provide opportunities for students to talk, and then a couple of strategies. I'm sure we're all familiar with the Kagan strategies. So just how do you form collaborative group discussions, and you will also be getting a list of those and a brief explanation on how to do there's tons of strategies and tons of ways to group your students, but this is just
Berta, will you go back one slide? I just want to bring something up. This is more for secondary folks. I work a lot with the math in the district and some of the ELA. One of the things, in case you've heard it, is moving from learning objective to primarily essential questions. So just so you know, even though it won't be on the poster, but I know in math, especially for the math people in here, starting in August, there's no more learning objective. It's all essential question, because we want kids discussing and dialoguing about a question, not having a finite, you must do this. So, because if you don't, then it's not successful. That's kind of where the mindset is. So, in case you've heard that, and some of you have been at some of my presentations for math, at the secondary level, that's where we are moving. So just in case any of you are curious and are wondering why I just told some of you that a few weeks ago, that we're not going to have that anymore. It's just part of one of the shifts that will be taking place. So you can just substitute EQ with the LO, or vice versa. Well, it's math and it's going into ELA, and it's going to become more secondary wide, but it's still.
In the elementary, that's what the new ELA curriculum has done. They give you an essential question for your unit of study. Like first grade, we have three weeks. For 3 weeks, we have an essential question. So that's why, it's good that the secondary is moving into that, because the primary is already there.
In Madera South, we need to have both.
Yeah, and it'll be moving to where you don't need the learning objective anymore.
Now, how closely are those questions tied to like language focus or anything?
It's going to be an essential question, and what is your language focus within that essential question?
But you need to do that if you're going to do any of the stuff we've talked about. If you're going to start academic talk, if you don't know what your language focus is, how do you know what sentence frames your kids might need, or what claim evidence reasoning piece you might do? So whether you're doing it based on objective or essential question, the language focus is still a hugely important piece of it.
Thank you. Okay, so I just listed a couple here. We have your typical pair share, and we kind of practiced that in again today, and where it's structured, and you can have it timed so that you allow a person to talk and the other person to truly listen, and then switch that up. And then Kagan also has one called Hands Up, Stand Up, Pair Up. Who has done this one before? Perfect. So I'm going to show a quick, I think it's like a 2-minute clip as an example for those of you who have not.
I was trained in Kagan Cooperative Learning this past summer, and it's totally changed my classroom environment. Students are engaged, they're all working with each other. The Kagan structure I used in this video is stand up, hand up, pair up, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Students stand up, they put their hand up, and then they pair up with someone else in the class. And with the task cards, I mean, the students had to pair up with every single other person in the class. During the structure, each student was kind of in charge of their own problem. So then they would kind of trade problems, they'd do each other's, and it was really nice because each student, I checked the answer to their problem before we started the structure. So they knew before they paired up that they could help someone with their problem. They knew they had the correct answer. So even the students who kind of struggle with math, at least they knew, okay, I know this one problem, and that can get them through the rest. It's really nice because during the structure, I was kind of freed up, so I could just wander around, listen in on conversations. If I noticed a student was really struggling, I could kind of pull them aside for a few minutes and work with them. They really start to just depend on each other, and they become so much more comfortable asking each other for help versus always coming to me with all the questions. Versus the traditional method, I mean, normally a math teacher would probably just say, okay, turn to page 50 in your book and do problems 1 through 28. Well, yeah, they would have done the same 28 problems, but through that, there may have been, 20 hands up in the class at the same time, like, oh, I don't get this one, I don't get this one. And during that, there's no way I could help all 30 kids at the same time. The content was exactly the same. They still did 28 math problems. They got a lot of practice dividing fractions. But instead of me having to be the person reteaching to every student and checking to make sure they got it right, they were kind of being their own teachers to each other.
Great stuff. So that's just one example of how you can get the students to. So that's one example of how you can get the students to talk instead of giving them a worksheet or assigning them problems. And then just providing the students with opportunities for interactive group projects. So there are tons of other ways to provide opportunities, but I've just listed a couple here. When you look at strategies, in the CELT there was this activity that the students had to do. Would you rather activities? Would you rather go to the beach or to the ocean? And then explain why. So this is just a great way to have the students, and it could be with anything. Would you rather, multiply or divide? Tell me 2 reasons why, and you can have the students interact. It could be a little quick activity. Asking higher order thinking questions. It's that why and the how. So go deeper. Why? Why do you think that? How do you know? So just getting them to talk a little deeper. Then oral presentation opportunities. Just as I think in one of the videos they showed the assignment going, taking it to that next level of just a 1-slide presentation. The next one is model rearranging questions to frame answers. So for example, one of the ones that I like to use is, why did the big bad wolf go to the first pig's house? You don't want to answer, so how do you take that question and you rearrange it? The big bad wolf went to the first pig's house because. So taking it and giving them that opportunity to talk. And then, again, providing sentence frames and opportunities for students to be able to feel comfortable and be able to start the talking. Any thoughts? And then I put these again here as a reminder, the 4 L's of productive talk. You look, you lean forward, you lower your voice, and you listen attentively. So having these structures in place so that students are able to talk productively. The next one is complete sentences. So it's important for the teacher to model the use of complete sentences. If the teacher is modeling the use of complete sentences, the students are going to be able to also respond in a complete sentence, and not just in the classroom, but when you're on the playground or when you're in the cafeteria, any opportunity that you have, practice those complete sentences. And this statement down here is very true. If a student cannot speak in a complete sentence, a student cannot write in a complete sentence, and I'm sure we all have seen that in our classrooms with our students. So the next one is error correction, and teachers will consistently correct language errors, and this is something that you have to train yourself to do it, because it's very, very challenging. If you're not listening for the errors, the language errors, there can be many kinds of errors, and we don't want to always just pinpoint and put the kids down. So how do you make it a safe place so that you can correct your students and your students will feel safe and not put down? And just do like immediate and gentle. And I put an example of some of the ones that I hear a lot is, he hurted me, it's he hurt me in the past, present, and in the future. And so how do you, instead of putting the student down, how do you turn that around and make it a learning opportunity for everyone?
And Bert and I had a conversation about this the other day, because one of the things that concerns me about error correction is, if I want academic vocabulary to come after I've introduced a concept and work with a concept, and I want kids to wrestle with it with their authentic voice to start with, I'm not going to do error correction in that activity. So I'm not doing error correction every single time. I'm not doing it when they're experiencing a phenomenon and they're first writing and talking about it. It's after we've started to address and access content, then we start correcting the vocabulary, and that's my science vocabulary and their English language arts structure. So there are places, right, you can't do every single correction every single time, or you'll never finish talking to one kid sometimes in the course of a period too, right? So it's important to do, and it's important to know when to do your error correction piece.
Another time to do it would be if you see a consistent error amongst many students in your class. Turn it into a mini lesson and error correct it that way. And then finally we have the push. How do you push students to a level of productive discomfort? And here I have an example of a very simple sentence that a student could write. I like eggs. So how do you take I like eggs and you push them? So you take like and you replace it with a synonym, enjoy. I enjoy, okay, it could have been I enjoy eggs, but then take some adjectives. I enjoy eating what kind of eggs? Boiled eggs? Give me something more. Hard-boiled eggs? I enjoy eating hard-boiled eggs. When? For breakfast. So that who, what, when, where, how can be added to your sentence to make it a lot longer. So there's many ways to push the students, but it's that how and the why. And so again, these are the 5 principles. I encourage you to try some of these. I know that when I used to work at MLK, one of the biggest pushes that we had was have the students speak in complete sentences. Even if you just started in your classroom or with your department, go through this and say, okay, what is one of these principles that we can commit to as a department, and hold each other accountable so that our students are able to become productive learners.
One of the tricks I want to add to that, and this is speaking from teacher, now administrator, because sometimes you feel like, oh, every time the admin's in there and I say, use a complete sentence, I know with myself, I used to tell students, I don't understand. And I talked to them beforehand. If I say I don't understand, that was their trigger to do a complete sentence, and that was nice for me when I'm being observed as a teacher and admin comes in. You know you've been telling them complete sentences all year long, but they still forget. So instead of saying that in May and your admin thinking, they're doing it only because I'm in here, right? Just have a trigger for them. And I used to teach them, if I say, I don't understand, that was their trigger. And they got to where they would talk to each other and someone would get an answer and they would say, I don't understand. And that, the admin in the room saw, oh, they're communicating. Oh, the teacher really didn't hear them. No, I heard them, but that was the trigger and that helped them remember I need to use a complete sentence. Just another trick, and you know, I think I'm the only admin in the room right now, but you know, I'm more than happy to hear that so that you feel more comfortable. I know I've trained my students, they didn't do it this time. So instead of them walking out and giving you that note, you can just have that trigger with your students and they'll know it automatically.
So can you come back in September and do an entire How to Fool Your Admin?
Absolutely. I fool myself every single day. So that's fantastic.
This is what the poster used to look like, and we still have those around. There was an older version of it, which was a blue one.
Do we have? Are we gonna get one of those?
You're gonna get one of these.
Yeah.
But if you'd like one of those, I can post it on the.
It's just a good reminder.
Yes, and this is what I've told my teachers is put them next to an area that is going to remind you to use these. The clock, you look at the clock often, that's a good place to put it near your clock. Use it to lesson plan. You know, how can you incorporate these as you are designing your lessons? And you can even go as far as teaching the students the principles. You don't want to teach them all at once, and then these things, I'm sure they are happening in your classroom. Maybe we're just not being cognizant of them. But if you're going to practice the 70-30, explain to them why it is important and why we're doing it. Okay. So I encourage you to choose one, and I invite you to practice one. And it could be a little bit uncomfortable, but you know, I think we gotta step out and just do it. And these principles they're not good just for our English learners, but for all of our students. And it's beneficial for every single student. So you get a poster today, and then that leads us back to our.
All right, so we actually are not at 7 o'clock. We tried to rush through, rushier than we needed to probably. But we wanted to give you some time to actually work on. First wants to show you another gift you're getting.
Another gift for you. I do not. This is an English learner spiral book. It is filled with scaffolds and supports. They have upgraded it. I have placed an order. The order should have been here, but it is not. You will be getting one of these. It has the proficiency level descriptors. It has, let's see what else does it have here. It has sentence frames.
And higher order thinking. It has sentence frames for different higher order thinking, for different proficiency levels, for different content areas.
Yes.
It's wicked cool.
It's really cool, and they've upgraded it. So you're gonna get the latest and greatest. Here's the English, tons of sentence frames and academic words to use, and signal words, science.
There's even science.
Yeah, can we have that one? Yeah.
Yours will have it too.
Yeah, it's gonna have all that stuff. So once they get here, we'll send them out. So.
A reminder.
I know.
Wherever you are. So we want to give you some time to work on the assignment, but I think what we want to do is probably shift you a little bit. It's Hackensack. Does everybody love Hackensack? So why don't we try moving our elementary folks to this table? We'll move our, we'll move high school here, middle school here, or you can do it by content. If you'd rather work together, if you're middle school science, you'd rather work with science people to think of this, or language arts, you'll have to talk to each other to find out how to work. But guys, I can't talk over you. I'll lose my voice. It's the end of the day. Okay, so what you're looking to do, work together to help each other find a topic that that you're going to cover in any content area that you teach. And then think about what can you provide your kids. Is it, do you want to use something from your language arts textbook? That's fine. But something where they're going to be able to make a claim to answer an essential question and support that with evidence from something. So you got to have the thing picked out too, right? And then what kind of supports do you need? Brainstorm a little bit together. We wanted to give you a little working time because if you were doing Google Classroom and you're going to take it for credit particularly, this is what you're going to do anyway. So we're giving you a head start. And if you aren't, you should do it anyway just because, hey, you're here. You might as well give it a shot, right, and see how it works for your kids. And then you can let us know. We are expecting you to show us some student work if you're uploading for class. By the way, the deadline June 2nd for these assignments for the credit is a firm one. The first deadline on the first assignment wasn't, but this one has to. But we got to get grades into, we've got to get the credit into San Diego for you all to get credit for the class. Okay? So, elementary's over there, high school, middle school are here, and you can arrange yourself how that works for you.
Listen. So I actually just tried the splash. I can't remember so this will be fun. The kids enjoyed it, and it was on the day when we first came back. So and then we did more.
And then you can start working on it while we're still here to answer any questions you might have about how to do it.
So I put them together.
I know, no one likes moving once they've got their stuff set. Pretty interesting. And we can add, I think we have 9 elementary schools.
And I told him, write all the concepts of all the postulates, theorems that you've learned throughout this year. That have to do
more, I get those chairs. Those chairs?
You don't know, do you know that? It said something else. I'm going to be a little bit. I'm good. The other ones were sorry. No, you're okay. Ratios. They were saying, what was it? Triangulation theorem, exterior theorem. So they were using all of that. And then they had them write, give me an example using each of the concepts that they wrote on their words of questions. Yeah, it was fun. It was nice. Some of them were like, oh, just look at like they were actually tonight. I was planning on not doing that. And then because I got grades in, right? But then last night I ended up putting grades in to my kids because I wanted them to realize they weren't doing their work for the debates or something. And so I showed them their bar graphs so that they would see, so that they could actually see they did their work. But now I have to go back and fix yeah, I haven't done my work this entire year, except for some reading books, except for in second period, I turned them into they're not actually yeah, so no, what stinks is that now we have an entire quarter that we're using for and now my kids are going to freak out because I'm able to market an entire quarter. Yeah, that's but my kids don't do homework, so that's the problem. So, English, I'm going to do for a quarter. An entire quarter, and now we're having an entire quarter where they have to do every single night actual reading. And so, but we had a quarter of where, we had a entire quarter where we really concentrating on online work, and a lot of my kids don't have access to online, so they didn't want to.
I almost got him with the
and so I didn't want to, you know, make it so that they had to do online homework. Because that, now we're stuck to where we're doing a novel at home and reading at home and doing activities in class. Yeah, some reading on their own, but not like classroom based. So just, yes, yeah. They just have a lot of trouble. That's why I've always
always done it before at other schools. However, our parents decided to do it at home. And I'm really concerned that it's not going to
By way of or how?
So what the idea is built in this
By listening to this video,
it's different.
What possible?
I can see working with one of my periods. One of my periods is really good about reading. Like literally, I gave them, reading and reading logs, and that one period turned into reading logs. The other period, absolutely. Yeah. So what do you do? A lot of teachers I decided not to do it this time because I had other things going on as they were also having that just teach them so far. So I actually decided not. I was at first not going to actually improve them. Their grades and things were going to well to the one period there was actually really sick. And so all I could do is stuff that was during the sem. So actually most of my periods I what I decided when I come back, there's some working on so and also because I know it's started from the back to and they just want so last night I decided to put it in what they told me and I just showed them the photographs what happened from when
So I'm going to talk to you and then I'm going to write my response whatever our original objective was.
This article, and then the other side, I give you a chance to mention something about how to be. So I heard you say, and that's the reason that Adrian is safer than teacher. However, and then they take their thing with them.
Can we make up two sentences?
So that when you're having
We might just have to
say, everyone's one and in one of those paragraphs. So I feel very proud on this idea that if you can't argue, then you can't write.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, that's why I was like that.
Do they take notes if the other person is talking, or do they just do it?
So we can have support
Originally our idea was that we had like teams of 3 has listening. But that's like,
Oh, really? Oh, but I mean,
they're all on the same in this respect, so I've had to kind of catch things up because of that. So it's just a little bit different.
You and I
Let's talk about who here. So one setting like just in here, and then have 2 sets of pairs combined, so then you have 2 on 2. And then we're going to expand and then the teacher everyone's talking at the same time. Don't go to trouble right now. Where's the child? Step 1. We're in the child state 2. So just do quarter 4. And if the child is there's a page that explains how you want to
and that's been the hardest part so far is the research. And so today I literally gave them the page and added to the books that they were trying to teach. Had everything kind of fall apart. And so the first day that I did that, I took them through a main page of pro and con. We worked together and we did the next day we did a con together. And I tried to have them do one on their own. This Thursday, I gave it to them
So I put some because sometimes the hot debate piece all goes away, and they're just yelling at each other about.
I didn't want to get too hot, right? But I didn't want to get mad. So I thought it would be why did they really work with it so long? And then I was asking the team, they kind of got figured out. They were like today, they were like, oh, we're so busy. Oh, yeah, we're so this because we're trying. I had to drag it out a little bit too long because I had to work because I was gone.
I should take it. I'm going to try to take it.
You get online, there's a bunch of resources about how to teach controversial topics. And they're really hard. I know I was nervous about it. I taught in school once when evolution was controversial.
Oh, that one
You gotta navigate your pathway through sometimes that. So trying to stay above the getting fired and yes. And you need to spend an entire year watching the country class and every class skills from all ends of the spectrum, right? So if we want our kids to do that, they gotta learn those skills because clearly today's world do not possess them. Yes. Okay. So what do you teach? Okay. You have so many of them.
Counting my own or all of my
Is there something that you're reading from language arts? I don't know what your language is called.
Her most she's ever gone is 2 days without having something or she We'll see.
Well, so the question they were dealing with is the focus text was a letter from the Birmingham jail, and they were asking, right, or what about your third grade teacher, Chavez, was teaching her kids about Mr. Chavez, and instead of just wondering about his life, she asked them, was he right to ask the famous person money? And then they started talking about his life and his personality, his life should be on that things about poor kids who were Chavez too. Nothing similar to him. So, but they got into that, so they took a simple idea, not a complicated idea, and they, by putting it into that, did he make the right decision? Now you've got to justify that, so then you've got to place a little text to justify. So I don't know if you have a text coming up that has an individual who makes a choice that you could get that question. Right, that's the whole, with the outsiders they ask those kind of questions. Did so-and-so, do the right thing? And those are kids focus on that. What's the evidence for that? So step it past, yes, of course he did, because I like this character, and so he was okay, right? What's the evidence of the text is important. It is the right decision. The idea of, is it justified you protesting as a concept? Is that a reasonable answer to and that would be a handy piece. And I'm sorry that you can't get what that's all about. But I would look for those kinds of things. And then if you find a text, you send it to me, and I'll look through it and see if anything bubbles up in my head too. I'd be happy And there is that word, it'd be nice if this was subtitled, but it isn't. It's in the middle of it. So pick something that's simpler, and if you need to use a narrative, to use that instead. It's almost a more test for or do it when testing's over. So that the other thing is, but try it just to see how it works. Right. So they do debate all the time.
Yes. So I guess when they see cases of like so they put evidence and they can but I'm not sure
what their reasons for that. So what's a topic that you've done a debate? Okay,
it doesn't have one right
I'm sorry.
everything into one or just make you good?
So why do these pieces of evidence lead you to conclusions that
Yeah, I heard about that.
What does that have to do with driving? I'm just thinking about
I thought you were just saying hi. No. Sorry, Jennifer bothered you.
So with that one, they're probably they're assuming that, but you want to take a look. That's the reason I'm going to say yes, that's a reason.
One of our essential questions.
I would give them things, yes, it is the very hardest piece. It's really evidence, easy to do the other piece. Guys, it's 2 minutes to 7. We still have Starbucks cards to draw. I hope you have your tickets. Find one if you don't. But also, before I pull the Starbucks thing, you have to do our survey. It's online. Whoops, I froze. Unfreeze. It's the exact same one you did last time, except it has a 2 instead of a 1. And in fact, it's the exact same questions you answered last time. Because they're a form required of us by the instructional leadership course. The first 3 are, the rest of them are not.
And if you have a computer that you can share with the county folks because they can't get online, that'd be great.
Yeah, if somebody has when they're done, if they have a computer, I don't because I need to leave mine here. But if you have if you get done and you have a computer, they could log in to their Google account, and actually any email account, and just they could just go in. But you've got to, that would work. Yeah.
What did you do for your writing?
And if you have a phone, well, you'd have to have on a phone. You could do it without Wi-Fi. You can do it on your plan.